So guys, you at the Southern Show said about the fact that the Isle of Man is only using 6% of Manx grown produce. Could you just tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, so back in November, the agricultural strategy and the food security strategy were presented at Tynwald. And in that debate, the DEFA minister said that local food production was at 6%, so food consumed on the Isle of Man. It's only 6% now. And we've been considering this figure, and to us it's pretty alarming. So I think that we thought, well, what can we do to raise a little bit more awareness about this, and maybe sort of see what public support is out there for local agriculture and local food, you know, and what do people feel about that? So we thought one thing we really need to do is maybe we get a public petition together and we get the public to support our campaign to the UK supermarkets particularly, and Isle of Man government in their procurement practices to start sourcing more local produce. And when I say local, I mean Manx.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say if we take the three major supermarkets on the island, we have to compliment them that they are supportive of the dairy sector. The range of products there from the creamery are really good. The creamery provide a really good range of products for them. But for the rest of our food that we consume, it's very, very poor, the amount that they stock that's locally produced, whether that be from, you know, vegetables, fruits, red meat. It's really quite disappointing, the amount that's out there. And I think as an island nation, it leaves us very vulnerable. The fact that 6% of our food is about all we consume on island that's produced on island. Whilst I'm not saying we could on farm produce 100%, it could be significantly more. In other island jurisdictions around about the British Isles, it is significantly more. And I think we're at the stage where the skill set will be lost as well. It's an ageing industry, the farming industry. And like this lovely, beautiful countryside we see around us, you know, that is a result of what Manx farmers do in producing food. And whilst exports are essential as well to balance up, and imports, I think we really do need to start consuming more food on island that's produced on island.
And if there isn't an increased use, I suppose, of Manx produce, and you don't see any change, what does that really mean for the island's food security from your perspective?
I think, as I say, we're very vulnerable. It's going to leave us very naive as an island. I think if you look globally, most of the conflicts we see going on at the moment are about both food production and energy production. The UK isn't self-sufficient in food production. It's only about 60%, I think, Sarah, isn't it?
Yeah, 60% in the UK. I think Jersey's 20%, which is kind of what you'd expect. But certainly other countries around the world, certainly in the Middle East, where they have almost zero food production, but they've got something to trade, and that makes a difference for them. So they import all of their food. However, even they now are looking at how they can change that and how they can start producing their own food a little bit more to create a little bit more food security.
And I think the hope with this is that if we can get the consumers going to the major supermarkets and asking, we can evidence this with the petition, that the consumer wants more locally produced food stocked in these major supermarkets. I think that's really the total aim of what we're trying to do, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not, as Ian said before, it's not an all or nothing situation. You know, there's going to be an element of imports and exports, and there's going to be an element of Manx. It's that balance that we've got to shift.
And if the marketplace was given to farmers to be able to produce more, how much do you gauge, I suppose, that they could actually produce for the island?
Well, I think certainly if we look into vegetable production, we've seen a number of potato producers and other vegetable producers dwindle away and disappear this last number of years. We've got, a number of farm shops that are supplying vegetables, but we probably only have one commercial vegetable producer that does a wide variety of vegetables left on the Isle of Man. And whilst, we have to compliment the likes of Robinsons, they're very supportive in taking from the likes of this producer. We really are going to lose it, and I do think it could be stepped up significantly, but a profitable marketplace has to be there for the produce.
And we've seen a decline in farm numbers over the past 20 years. And obviously with that figure coming out, how does that really make you feel for what the future holds?
So I also had a little bit of a look at some of the farmed land statistics on the Isle of Man. And the figure that often gets used is that 75% of the Isle of Man is farmed. That was 15 years ago. The figure is now 68%. So it is reducing, it is shrinking. The problem is bringing that back is going to be very, very difficult. And it's not going to happen overnight. So what we've got to do is we've got to at least maintain the current levels of production and start working on increasing those and creating those opportunities within the industry, however we do that.
Because I think the important thing to recognise is we need to do that to encourage the next generation to come in. The age of Manx farmers is, I'm not sure exactly what it is now, but I would say it's over 60 now. And we really do need the next generation following in, but there's got to be a sustainable business model there for them to come into.
And they do want to do it as well. We've tried to do a little bit around educational and employment opportunities as well. And they want to do it. They want to get into these sectors. It creates economic diversity as well, because it's not just specifically farming, but it's all those related industries that are connected to it. And there is real interest and real keenness from younger people to get into it. But how do they do it? That mechanism hasn't been put in place.
If we take the wheat production, that's dropped drastically with the loss of Ramsey Bakery, as obviously the Laxey flour mills aren't taking in anything like the quantity they were. That's a very specialised industry, milling wheat growing. And we are going to lose that skill set. The people that were doing it, they're not going to be able to pass that knowledge on to the next generation if they're still not continuing to do it.
And what do you think the Isle of Man government can do to prevent this number from falling further?
Well, I suppose the first point is we urge the government to lead by example. The government's the biggest feeder of people every day on the Isle of Man, between the prison, the hospitals, schools. Whilst they are changing their procurement policy, we do appreciate that. It's still they need to lead by example to make sure that it is locally produced product whenever possible, and also it needs to be locally produced, not just locally sourced. We need to sort out that labelling, and I think we urge government to do a lot more work on labelling onto what genuinely is Manx produce, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding by the consumer at times.
Yeah, and I think that labelling can get confusing, and it's difficult for the consumer to interpret all of those different meanings, whereas it's just got to say this is Manx produced. And I think there's more definitely that we could all be collectively doing around education as well. Educating people about food, about what they're buying, about what's healthy, what's good for the environment, and all of those things. And some of those messages get quite mixed as well, but the government could definitely be starting to embed some of those within each and every one of their own departments and through their procurement processes. And then the public and government can pressurise those UK supermarkets to take responsibility and start stocking a bit more Manx produce.
Now, I assume you'll also have this petition on show at the Royal Manx Agricultural Show.
Yeah.
For people coming down to the show, where will they be able to find you, and also can they get part of the petition there?
We're usually sited near the main entrance to the Royal Manx Show, and we'll have a lovely big stand. We'll have all sorts of stuff going on. We've got lots of displays of farm animals. We've got hopefully a shearing demonstration. We've got absolutely loads of information about farming and food and why it matters. And then if they come in and visit us, they'll see, if they walk through our marquee with our lovely local produce display, they will see at the end there, they will see the petition that they can sign on site. But it is online. If anyone's signing it as well, please share it with friends and get them to sign too.